When we had the wood cut into boards, we then needed to stabilise this, and that basically means we didn't want it to dry out too quickly, otherwise it would crack and cause problems. And hello snake. And so we just wrapped it in cling film, and this has kept it from drying out over the last few weeks, so by which time we've managed to build our kiln. So now we're going to remove the stabilisation. Oh, before I go any further, I cut a small piece off the end of one of these, and we're going to use this as a reference. So I'll cut this in half. Half of it I will leave in the kiln, and I'll be able to weigh this throughout the drying process. The other half I will take into an oven and bake it so it's completely dry, and we'll be able to calculate what the moisture content in this is. So we'll then know when we've got to the point at which we've dried the timber to its maximum capability. Okay, so this is our kiln. It's simply plywood, and in the middle of the plywood boards we've got some fiberglass insulation, and we've lined it with some plastics because it will be very high humidity air, so it will condense rapidly on the surfaces, so try and protect the wood a little bit. I'm going to lay a set of spacers down. Okay, and we're ready to get our first board and bring it into the kiln. We'll start with what we consider to be the biggest one, and we'll cut the stabilising material, for want of a better description or word. Peel it back. I'd have weighed this at 30 kilos before we did this, and this one is 30.1 kilos, so that hasn't dried out at all since we stabilised it, which is a very good sign. Here. So I've continued to load the kiln with the boards, working up through the heavier boards up through to the lighter ones, putting spacers in between the boards so the air can circulate freely between them. In the kiln there's a thermostat, and this controls the heater. The temperature is set on the thermostat at the front, and we're increasing that by 1 degree per day. So that is our kiln loaded. A little bit of space, some extra timber next time maybe. This is a humidity monitor. We can put this in at some point, just see what the humidity is, but this has a remote temperature sensor, so we can place this in the kiln and we'll get an idea for the temperature. Close the lid. Check that the cat is not in. And pop our lid on. So every day you want to go into the kiln and weigh the test block. This will gradually get lighter as time progresses, and as time moves on you want to actually take the boards out and weigh those. So once they get to the calculated weight for the certain moisture content that we're after, then you can remove those from the kiln. While you're measuring the weight of the test block, you also want to remove any water that's been condensed in the dehumidifier. Our kiln actually didn't turn out to be that airtight, so we did actually have moisture leaving the kiln through the gaps at the side of the kiln, but it all worked out quite well in the end. So you see at the bottom of the kiln there's a lot of water that's condensed out, which shows how saturated the air is, and also between the boards, the boards themselves seem quite wet. And see you in 4 weeks.